Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Aspiring Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Hamza Chowdhury. Welcome to today's daily recap. It is Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. As you guys know, I mentioned on my last video last week that I was going to be out of commission for a few days as I was doing an MC for a wedding in Southern California. Had a great time. It was nice to just sort of get some normalcy around here with COVID and all. And of course, enjoying someone's wedding. Just had a blast down there. And so I hope you guys sort of recharged and been doing well. And, obviously the stocks that we've covered from last week, I'd like to carry them over for this week. And so in this daily recap video, I'll just be going over Apple, Tesla, Palantir, Clover Health, Spce, and C3 AI. If you did enjoy this video, one thing I do always like to ask in these videos, it sort of keeps me motivated, is if you could hit the like and subscribe to this channel, share this with your friends and family. As always, we're a 100% free content channel, so we don't really generate anything other than your interest. And so just to kind of keep me motivated, and it tells me that you guys are watching this content, let me know if there's something that you'd like to see on this channel outside of stocks. As I mentioned, I'm also an entrepreneur, and I will be doing some stuff about buying a home and real estate and also construction, as I'm also a contractor and I do a lot of projects specifically in the Bay Area of California. And so I do want to just sort of branch out, especially for some of you guys looking to invest outside of the market into other ventures, into other ideas. And if you're looking for a home, of course, I can talk pretty much about anything with real estate. With that said, guys, we'll start off with our Apple stock. And way back when, if you follow this channel for a while, I keep mentioning to you guys, if you're an Apple long and you're trying to find, how far down can the stock go. I mentioned in the last Sunday video that, we talked about the weekly chart that, long term, we can see that the stocks are clearly right uptrending. Okay. And so if you're talking about short-term behavior, we've experienced really since the early February, this sort of what feels like a downtrend in the market. But clearly we're still uptrending as a stock. And so we had this top here around the market when we had the split, and then we broke that this was really around the Apple car news. And so we've been uptrending, and we finally became bearish on Apple. And so you see this purple line, it's indicated as what we call the anchored VWAP. And so I mentioned it back here, that's what I was risking around 114. And now you can see the 200-day has sort of come up, but we haven't bounced off of it. And so same thing, our strongest support for Apple has been this 117.80. And you can see that these lines, the 200-day, which is a very common bounce on a lot of stocks it's simply just a moving average of the 200 days of the stock, and the 117.80 are slowly intersecting. And so I would still sort of say the same story, which is this is a perfect bounce for Apple if you're going to add some shares into the 117s. And again, you're still risking this anchored VWAP around 115. Okay. And so you can see that we had back in sort of last year in the third and fourth quarter, we had bounces off of this anchored VWAP. And so it's not uncommon for us to see a possible support at around 114, 115. And so that's still valid. But I just wanted you guys to know that now with the 200-day sort of converging back here, and now it's sort of crossed, it's going to hit our 117.80. And the reason why I mentioned that specifically today is I could tell that Apple is having issues. We've held the 123 support. I haven't changed any support resistance lines on Apple since our last video, or even before that. So you can still see that we're having this issue between 120 and 123. And so I wouldn't be surprised to break this consolidation if we retest the 117.80, which would just happen to give us a 200-day bounce. Okay. And so that's what I would be looking for to validate before, again, we start to back to uptrend. Okay. And get back to at least to the 50, which we mentioned is at the 130. Tesla, this administration is going to be pro EV. I think that's pretty well known, and no surprise. The change that I've made since our last video is the 660 is no longer a valid support, but of course our 600 now is, and 660 is clearly a resistance line. Okay, and so of having 4 days of trading below that, it no longer was considered a support. And we mentioned 600 in the last video, which was last Wednesday, that we had a great bounce off of it, but I mentioned it's a very choppy market, so we give back the gains the next day, traded flat, and then we had this bounce. And I was talking to some friends, and I mentioned that I really think we're risking right down here around 575, 570 for Tesla. And then the news came out today, and we know that there's a lot of pro EV sort of support and momentum, and so it was great bounce. And I just personally, for me, I'd like to get this tested and support, and I'd like to see levels hold. It's just been a real choppy market. We've just been uptrending and breaking levels, uptrending and breaking levels, and then it's just been really choppy. And so my expectation and hope, again, is still risking 575 Still, in theory, it is a higher low from where we were a couple weeks ago, and so we should see a higher high. Okay, and this previous high was 709. As I mentioned, I'd like to see us getting back up here over the 50 around the 775. And so as long as we see a higher high, which in this case it was, the high was around 715, and again I expect something up here, up in the upwards like 775, then we've essentially made a higher high and a higher low, and we're back to uptrending on Tesla. Okay, and if we were to break that trend and start downtrending in Tesla, we would see something below 540. Okay, so we'd make a newer low, which would be essentially possibly hitting the 510 on the 200-day or an anchored VWAP at 450 if we were very bearish on the stock, which I don't really see. But again, this market has taught us that, it's sort of humbled all of us, right? Palantir continues to be a weak stock, but it's just setting up really nicely for a great breakout. I feel confident about it. Several of my indicators are telling me that. I mean, you can see we're constantly having negative positive momentum, so it's not necessarily just that. But it's also just the way it's setting up, and you can kind of recall this sort of back and forth that we had before we had this major breakout going into demo day. And I kind of feel the same way leading up to demo day, April 14th, which is in a couple weeks. And so, the stock just has had solid consolidation in the 20s. Back here on earnings, I never imagined we would be back here. I would be totally loading up on shares. And so for this stock, the RSI, you can see it was really over on the overbought side, and it's been more on the bearish side. And we flushed out a lot of the lockout shares and the sellers. And so, I'm like most people, Kathy Woods and a lot of sort of big timers, everyone's just adding shares. And so you just add shares and you sort of wait when they want to move this thing up. And clearly the 2750 is giving it some issues. And so for Palantir, I'd be really looking for a breakout of 2350 to confirm this. And keep in mind that we had a low here of $20.18. We got close here at 21, but we did make a higher low. And so as long as we don't break the $20, we're still technically on an uptrend, and we should see a trend reversal. Okay, and this time I expect us to get back to 2750, which is where the 50-day is, but we need to hold that, and we need to trade up and get up to the 30. Okay, and especially with the demo day and all the things coming out, I expect that the trend will continue. And we've had just a ton of consolidation in the 20s, and it's held really well. Okay, but it's just been really hasn't done anything. I feel like it's just been more or less flat. Clover Health, pretty disappointed, I would say, on this stock. I have updated some of our resistance lines since our last video. 815 is no longer a support. You guys can see here we had a solid 10 days of consolidation and support, constant bouncing off that level, and it finally just failed. It doesn't trade a whole lot of volume. You can see that the average volume is about 10 million. We traded about 5 million shares. But again, same idea is that our day here, we were trading as low as $6.30. And then this day here, we were trading as low as like $7, and today it was $6.90. And so in theory, as long as we can hold that $7 and we can trade up, we are making a higher low, and then we can make a higher high if we get over, I believe it was like 910, which was this day here. Okay, and so what I really expect to happen is we'll uptrend back over 815, revalidate it as a support, and make our way back up. Okay, so the idea is we've had a ton of consolidation. We had a lot of momentum from 690 all the way up here to over $9, and now we've sort of retraced a lot of that, but we have a solid support here and constant bounce of 7. And so it's a slow mover, guys. There's not a lot of volume. There's not a lot of catalyst. That's what really drives these stocks. And so if there's no catalyst, guys, it's just going to fade. And so what I really want to see the algos do is push this thing up back into, get us up to the 50-day, which I mentioned was closer to 1050, which is where I'm looking to sell my shares up in here. Okay, and so unlike the other stocks, this one is downtrending. But like I mentioned before, as long as we're trading above $7, excuse me, $6, where we had this low here, that we're making a higher high and a higher low, we should get back up here into the 50-day. And this has just been beaten down. It's these short seller reports, they come out and that's what they do. Okay, they short sell, and that's all this is done. Okay, and you can see it bounced again off this bottom Bollinger Band, and now you can see we're starting to create a channel. And so that, don't be surprised if you start seeing us trade in a channel between the $7 and, like, let's say the 950. Okay, so what we really need to see is an article come out or a catalyst to really get the stock back up. Okay, and we could test obviously as high as $15 up here. Okay, in this current channel. Spce, it's been also kind of a disappointing stock. I mentioned before 31 I felt like was a solid support, but it looked like we were just breaking it down, and then finally it started acting as resistance as soon as yesterday, right? So we had this bounce and we couldn't break the 31, so clearly it was a resistance line. So I changed, that was another update I did change this to a red resistance line, and I updated our support line here at 28. The reason why I really like this trade specifically, guys, is again the convergence of all these different indicators. So we have the bottom Bollinger Band, we have the 200-day, we have the anchored VWAP, we have a clear identified support. And so when you have like 2, 3, 4 of these guys converge, it really just gives you a lot more conviction on taking a trade. And obviously you can look at the RSI as well. And so anywhere from 26 up to 28 has just been a solid buy, and it gives you usually about a $1.50 range. You can see here. The average range, it looks like it's saying it's about $3, but let's just call it $2 or so. And so it's a good trade. It's similar to a Palantir. It gives you a decent spread. And so I would be doing the same thing, as I would be collecting shares, and again, this is where you're risking. It's a higher low, which was down at the 24. Okay, and so even though we've broken the support, we still closed above it, and that's the key. Okay, so you can break a support, but as long as you close above it, that's fine. And so we're still at the same time, right? We made a high here at 36, we made a low here at 28. And so as long as it's a higher low, again, we can continue this sort of uptrend that we see that it's created. Okay, and with all of the support here, I wouldn't risk anything lower than 25.50 if I were to get involved. And same thing here, the low was $24. Okay, so it could be valid as low as possibly as $25. The last stock is AI, probably been the most disappointing stock. I've shorted the stock. I've played both sides of the trade. But I mentioned to you guys before that once we really broke the $70 range, tech in general has been really weak for the market the last couple months, and it's had a massive run up, and AI is no different, right? It had a run up from $90 all the way up to over to 180s, right, in just a few days. And so the stock's been a little tricky to trade, and we had good consolidation. And so the other difference change that I did coming into today's video was 73 is no longer a validated support, even though we had some decent consolidation. We broke that level, and of course people start panic selling, and guys, they get it, right? When you're panic selling, there's always someone on the other side just buying it, right? And then you've heard probably that hedge fund that got a margin call. I mean, that's a massive fund. If they're getting margin call, imagine the average retail trader. So what are they doing? We're just liquidating shares, we're selling shares. And so for me, I've been more on the patient side, just knowing what they're doing and just watching, right? And so I mentioned to you guys that I've been scalping this trade, and then I decided to hold on to some shares back here around 78 and just let it do its thing, let it wait for a trend reversal. And so when we were up here, we knew that the bottom of the Bollinger Band was down here, and it ended up wanting to get all the way to the base here. So we're on the bearish side of the band, and now that we've held this sort of key level here of $61.50, pretty well. What I'm looking for now is a confirmation of a reversal. Okay, and so what I want to see is, assuming, let's just say for example $60 is a low, what I want to see is a higher high. I want us to start trading above 73 and then getting back up here. Okay, so I mentioned to you guys my plan is to sell up in the early 80s and then hold maybe a portion up as we sort of retrace. But right now you can see that we had a high here and we're making a lower low. Okay, so what we want to do is see a trend reversal, which I expect. I mean, the stock's been completely beaten up, and anytime you trade 40-50% off of your IPO, which was back in the 90s, I could definitely see this thing coming back up. But it's an interesting stock, let's just say that. And it's also a reminder, guys, this might be a market where if you're long, scalp trades aren't necessarily a bad thing. Okay, and so even though I'm testing out some trades and some trusting the plan, there was several opportunities I've had, whether it was Tesla, Palantir, or even AI, to get out of trades green, and then instead you end up back holding because you want to trust some type of plan, and the market can humble you and let you know sort of what which direction it wants to take. So I, again, never get worried. I never stress about this stuff. It's the market being the market, and there's nothing here to worry about. Everything's great in the economy, things are reopening, and that's why you've seen a lot of the reopening plays really take off here. With that said, guys, that's pretty much it. I did run a little longer than I'd like to on these videos, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. And again, if you did enjoy it, please do hit the like button. As always, guys, post a comment if you have any questions on anything that I've said, and I will respond. Take care, guys, and have a good day. Bye-bye.